Welcome to the Onco PT podcast, where you'll learn from oncology experts, practitioners, and patients to help you on your journey to become a confident and competent Onco PT. Here's your host, Elise Cantu.
Hey Onco PT, and welcome to this episode of the Onco PT podcast. Right before we turned on the microphones to actually start recording, this guest and I were reminiscing, and I've known this guest for 3 years now, and I've seen her grow from a student about to go out on clinical rotations to being on clinical rotations to then graduating and taking her licensure exam to now being a practicing oncology physical therapist, and not just practicing in this really special area, but really stepping up and taking charge and taking command. And Kelly didn't know I was going to do this. If you're watching this on YouTube, you can see it right now. But in the works of making this conference session happen, I wrote down a little reminder for myself, so I would always remember it, that on June 11th, 2025, we had a conversation, and I officially decided that Dr. Kelly Martin is going to be known as the godmother of return to sport in Onco PT. And if that doesn't tell you a little bit about the incredible speaker and session that I have on the podcast today, that we are going to give you a little sneak peek on as we count down the days until the Cancer Rehab Community Conference 2025, my friend, you are in for a treat. I am so thrilled to welcome, as you've probably already guessed, Dr. Kelly Martin to the Onco PT podcast, back again, but this time as a speaker at our upcoming Cancer Rehab Community Conference. Kelly, welcome back to the Onco PT podcast.
Honestly, I think you just memorized exactly what you just said and present that as my intro at the conference.
Done.
Because,
happy.
I don't even know if I need to continue presenting. That was just phenomenal. And just you have the sticky note. So, like Elise said, my name is Kelly Martin. I am a physical therapist. I consider myself a new professional PT still. I'm about almost 3 years out in clinical practice, which is crazy in and of itself because, I've known Elise as a student and I can't even believe I'm right here and having an opportunity to even speak in a conference. As a little baby PT student, I didn't see myself this close out of school and in clinical practice to even have an idea worth presenting on. And so really just thankful to, Kelly and Elise for putting this conference together and giving me a platform to present my ideas, and really what's been my brainchild over the last probably year and a half, and kind of something on the side that I've been diving into. I currently am practicing in Virginia, and I see all oncology. So I split my time between a major cancer center, seeing a whole mix of, head and neck cancer, stem cell transplants, gynecological cancers. And then I also split my time at a breast center. So I'm seeing all breast cancer survivors as well. And I've been working for the Onco PT since I was a third-year PT student, which was probably one of the best things. As a PT student, you feel super overwhelmed and it's do I take on do I take on something else? And it's probably one of the best things I did was to take on that advertisement and take a job for 100% sure.
It's so wild. It feels like a lifetime ago, but also it feels like yesterday. I put something up, I think on Twitter or something. It was then known as Twitter, right? Long time ago. And I was like, hey, it's time. I'm looking for help. And I remember going through the process of interviewing people, and ultimately it was Kelly is the fit that I'm looking for right now. And it's been so cool to get to work with you, not just at that time, but also watching you again really develop into the physical therapist that you are today, and also knowing what's in store has been so exciting. And so I'm really glad that I did finally persuade you to submit that speaker application, right? Because we do not play favorites here at the Onco PT. We do have a very democratic process by which we select our speakers. Everyone has to do an application. And so I was so thrilled because especially this topic, Kelly, it's very niche. It's very new. It shouldn't truly be, though, because the amount of people that are likely trying to do this in some capacity after a cancer diagnosis, it's not zero. And so I'm really excited to talk to you about really like returning to sport and higher levels of activity in cancer survivorship. But I want to actually start with something first that you said earlier, which is you've been practicing for 3 years, which, you know, it's still some time. It's not a lot of time in the grand scheme of things. But one of the things that's so important to us at the cancer rehab community is to make sure that we are making an inclusive space to hear from a variety of voices. And, you know, those who have been practicing for decades in the field and have just this mountain of experience and wisdom to share with us, but also elevating and highlighting newer voices and maybe those who haven't been at, you know, presenting at these national conferences for years and years and years, because we have something that we can learn from everybody. So anyways, can you just give us a little bit of backstory on what did eventually persuade you to, or, you know, like convince you to submit for speaking at the conference this year, and then what led you to this topic specifically?
Yeah, so honestly, I remember texting you and saying, and on 100%, I was like, she might say no. Like, I think back to your podcast, I don't know, a couple weeks ago now, where
Okay.
where it was like with growth, like take a shot, and it's okay if someone tells you no in the process. So like that was even before, but you had other podcast conversations. We had talked about this, you know, even in my last job, where really that's where this light bulb came off.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I get to share that part of the story a little bit in my presentation. So I'm not going to tease I'm going to tease some of it, that it's coming, my background's kind of coming out of where this really was born for me, that got me on this path. But yeah, I was in my last job and I remember talking about it, and just like, I was like, you know, Elise, I love the oncology population. I know this is what I want to do. And I think I'm like, I just don't know quite yet, like what area, what diagnosis, population, whatever, that really just like sets my brain on fire. Like, where I'm just like, like just talk for hours, could see it going in so many different directions, until I got to this topic of return to sport and return to, you know, high levels of training, heavy loading, and endurance-based activities. And that was a lot of influence from my previous job, which was an outpatient in sports. And I saw in that time frame, I saw the two populations collide, and I was like, whoa, this happens. This is something people do in clinical practice, and there's not much out there. Okay, then there needs to be more out there. And so I remember we had talked about that kind of in the fall of last year, and it was like, okay, there's a lot. It felt in that moment like, oh yeah, I can talk, but like about the idea, but you know, what's out there, and how do I, you know, start making a name for myself in that niche of a topic. And so I fully expected when I texted you to be like, you know what, she may say no, I'm not ready, because you've already heard my thoughts on, you know, where I think this could go and where my questions were going. And so I was like, she may say I'm not ready, and that's okay. If she tells me that I'm not ready, that just means I'll, you know, bring it together and I'll go for the next conference. And I was fully okay with you saying like, Kelly, actually, no, I don't think your idea and your thoughts are, you know, carried out enough to present yet, but I want to see you present in the future. So I was ready for that no, but you were like, in all caps, like, yes, just submit an application. I was like, all right, deal. So put an application together, and then didn't expect either to get a yes. It was like, all right, I'm just going to give this my shot. And didn't expect to get a yes, was still in that, like, they may both say no, given everyone else that's really, bring really great topics to the conference, there's lots of people that apply, and then getting a yes and being like, oh, okay, well then my thought is, somewhat thought out, even though it's, still an evolving direction. And so I think that's really what's cool about it. And so, yeah, I didn't picture myself 3 years out even having a platform to present with, which I think is really cool about the conference. Like Elise said, is that, you could be a year out in practice and have a really good idea and well thought out that you want to present and share experience. You could be 20 years into clinical practice and have had so much experience and wealth of knowledge to share with everyone that you also have a seat at the table, which is really cool to see the diversity that's across, clinicians' experience, but also topics too.
Yeah. Yeah, we have a really dynamic panel of speakers this year. We've already heard from Alexandra Hill. We've also heard from Alex Eilers on her navigating uncertainty and when I don't know is the answer, which was a fabulous interview, fabulous conversation. Very much looking forward to those sessions. Like, we have a lot of stuff to cover. And I think that's also, Alex put it best of, this is what really this community building and elevating lots of voices with different perspectives is what really elevates our profession. And ultimately what that translates to is we have rehab professionals who are better able to go out to their communities and better show up for their patients with what they're dealing with and what the clinical reality, which is a term that I totally stole from you, FYI, we know being able to bring that to the clinical reality of their patients in their environment, in their communities, and be able to bring this high quality of cancer rehabilitation. Like, that's what this is all about. So getting more into your session, Kelly, okay, don't give it all away, but your session title is called Getting Back in the Game, Return to Sport in Cancer Survivorship, which chills just thinking of. Can you tell us a little bit about, what you're going to cover or what's going to be contained within this amazing presentation that you're doing?
Yeah, so, it's really designed to kind of walk through, areas of things. A lot of things I feel like in the beginning of it is talking about, some of the basics we know. What are aspects of exercise and sport? Like, what makes up an athlete when we think from a physiological standpoint? What are those foundational concepts? And then weaving that into, okay, well, we know that. We learn that in, preparation for school. We learn that in school. As a student, we talk about those things. And then it weaves into, well, okay, well, what happens with cancer? They're undergoing X number of treatments, you name it, chemo, radiation, surgeries. How are those things impacting, those foundational parts of being an athlete and really being a human? You're thinking strength, endurance, power, agility, speed, all of those things we throw around. And we talk a lot about them, with strength and endurance when it comes to our survivors and them combating their fatigue, them getting back to their just regular daily activities, them hopefully at least at minimum meeting the baseline recommendations for exercise, which are provided by the ACSM with their roundtable on cancer and cancer survivorship. That's the minimum for these athletes.
Yeah.
They are oftentimes at baseline, exceeding those. And so thinking about knowing that, recognizing that, and thinking about that when that person shows up in front of you, or it's really about advocating so that person does show up in front of you. Because I personally think, some of the reasons why we don't see these people more frequently is because of their high level of function. It's kind of in some ways a really great pro about them.
Totally.
But in other ways, by trying to catch them sooner, when we think about like prospective surveillance, trying to catch them sooner is the con, because they'll do well. And then some of them are the hardest hit ones. when it all goes down. And so getting to talk about that a little bit through, what things we learn about cancer and its treatment and how those are detriments to what we know an athlete needs to have. And then saying, okay, well, what's out there? Because I'll drop, and it's not a surprise to anyone. It's slim. There's not much out there. So what is out there? Talking about, what is out there and what does it say to us about what we can do? And then really tying it together of like, okay, so here's what's limited. Here's your knowledge. Here's what's limited. How are we going to apply that on Monday when you go into the clinic? And maybe you meet a 36-year-old female breast cancer survivor, just underwent a deep flap, and she was running half marathons before her diagnosis. And that's what she wants to do after she recovers from her deep flap and she goes through radiation and she starts letrozole as a hormonal treatment. What am I going to think about when I meet that person on that day, on Monday, when she walks into my clinic?
Yes. So honestly, a little eerie. You just described one of my patients, slightly different, but these are the patients that we're seeing. And, I think initially when we hear return to sport, we're thinking like professional athletes, college athletes or something, but not considering the everyday athlete. And, it never really crossed my brain, truthfully, when I first got into oncology about this intersection between return to sport and oncology until, because I swam all through high school, I coached swimming, like love, love, love swimming, until Nathan Adrian, who is an Olympic swimmer, was diagnosed with cancer. And, obviously like the details you can go and look up because Nathan has shared these, pretty widely, but really appreciating, because if I'm remembering the timeline correctly, he was also then trying to get back to, the shape to where he could compete and then ultimately qualify for that next Olympics, whatever that was. And so understanding, yes, Nathan Adrian, absolutely like peak athlete, like at the top of his game. And still there was a struggle to not just get back to his previous level of function, but also to get to the point to where he could be competitive. And maybe we're not working with Olympic swimmers, but a lot of my patients, just like what Kelly described perfectly, they are half marathoners. I have a patient right now who is super into CrossFit, and she's having difficulty getting back to like, we're kind of catching those impairments and whatnot, but getting to that next level of being able to participate at that high level of very intense physical activity. That's a challenge for us right now. And so this is something I want the listener to really think beyond this like professional athlete. This is like, there is so much more that is really involved in this and is really lacking a lot of times, like you mentioned, Kelly, for this patient population to not just like get back to, whatever that baseline is, or, oh, they'll be fine because they have good physical function beforehand. That's not necessarily the reality that our patients are facing.
Yeah, no, I mean, we think about a lot about, one other professional athlete that I even remember, even before I was like really hard thinking about, this idea of the world, the two worlds colliding of, sport and oncology, and those two realms kind of starting to cross paths with each other. I remember his name is Liam Hendricks. He's a baseball pitcher, and he was diagnosed with, I want to say, Hodgkin's lymphoma. I know it was lymphoma. It may have been non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, but either way, lymphoma of some form. Underwent treatment for it and then was able to return back to the mound. And then he tore his UCL, which and ended up having to have Tommy John surgery. And I remember thinking like, well, why would that have happened? Anything can be a fluke, but why would that have happened the first season he returned to sport after his diagnosis, and starting to, and I remember like going on Twitter, and I think I tagged Andrew Chongaway and maybe Adam Matichak as PTs, because I knew they were in the realm and they're like they know more than me and what their thoughts were. And then I think I tagged some other sports PTs, like Mike Reynold and Lenny Macarena, which are big in Champion PT, which is like big baseball hub up in they're in Massachusetts, I think.
Okay.
And so I was like, what are y'all's thoughts? Like, where's this like collab here? We've got some oncology and we've got some big baseball sport people. Like, why would this have potentially happened? It could have just been a fluke, but you know, given the player's history, was like, what did they test before he went back on the mound? I don't know. It just opens up a whole. I haven't read a case study yet about him, but I think it would have been a really cool one to understand his journey, or just him, you know, share more and reflect more on that and his team. Just because, I was like, wait a minute. Well, these people that have a high desire to go back to some, you know, competitive play, they if you know, just like with an ACL, if you don't rehab well enough, you're gonna get you're at a higher risk for getting another injury.
Absolutely.
You know,
absolutely.
For whatever reason. And it's not necessarily that everything he went through caused that, but you know, just it gets you thinking of like, I wonder is there any correlation? Was there anything going on, you know? Did he ever have rehab? I have no idea. But he's like another one where you could like, it'd be really powerful to hear their perspective. But then the everyday person that wants to CrossFit 5 days a week, like they were doing, and compete on the weekends, you know, run marathons, you know, those people are doing, you think about, I've run a marathon, just training for it is hard. That's the hardest part about doing it. And so when someone's, you know, undergone 6 cycles of chemo and now they could run for 2 hours and now they can walk for 5. It's like, okay, we've got some work to do here, and to really get you to pull you back up to speed.
Absolutely.
Which is like so exciting. I feel like that's where we can, you know, we always get creative in intervention and clinical practice, but I feel like this just opens up a whole nother like door of opportunity to get even more creative. And really again, another world where I've always felt like oncology PT is a place where it's so dynamic and it's so multi-system that you can't, you know, you always have to be brushing up on the other topics in the world of PT, your musculoskeletal, your neuro, your cardiopulm, you know, your integumentary. You have to have that fresh. Sometimes you're like, oh, I need to go look that up, but like, you know where to find it. You have to it has to keep moving in your brain all the time. And sport is one of them too.
Oh man. Okay, that's a really powerful mic drop. I want to make sure that we highlight this too. So, you know, everything that Kelly has been saying so far, like obviously like amen girl. But also the reality of the landscape in oncology in 2025 is that more people are getting diagnosed with cancer at earlier ages. And while we want all of our patients to be meeting those, you know, the minimum standards set forth by the ACSM, which helps us, you know, like this is how to be healthy, as, you know, doing aerobic and resistance training, balance training, etc. We are likely going to be encountering more patients who are participating at these high levels of activity, who are then diagnosed with cancer and are then stuck with, am I going to be able to get back to doing the things that I love? So like all that Kelly is saying, and then to put like an extra sense of urgency on why this is so necessary to talk about. Because again, I am not a sport PT. I'm not working with athletes, at least in my mind. But then I go, and like you said, when you were introducing that patient at the top of the episode, I was like, oh my God, that's like my patient right now that I'm talking about. And then I thought of my CrossFit athlete, for example. Like these are the patients that we're seeing in our community. And it's really important to make sure if it's important to them, it needs to be important to us. And so we need to be helping patients get to that level of participation that they desire to. You've already hit us with a major mic drop quote there, Kelly, that I'll absolutely be using again. Without giving everything away in your presentation, what is maybe another mic drop or surprising insight that you'll be sharing at your session?
So when you prompted me with just some questions to be thinking about in prep for this podcast, when I read that one, I was like, what am I going to mic drop? I don't know. If it's my first presentation. So there's nerves surrounded by, like, I'm going to be presenting to people that are, 20 years into practice and know what they're talking about. And so it's like, okay, there's some expectation behind it. And so I was like, what kind of mic drop am I going to do? So the one thing I thought of was, even right now, from now to conference day, when you hear me present, be thinking about the phrase beginning with the end in mind. And thinking about, what does that mean to you as a PT? What does that mean to you as potentially a PT getting into oncology? What does that mean to the onco PT that's already in it? For regardless of how long you've been in it, beginning with the end in mind. That phrase, I was like, that's kind of, as I bring that into my presentation, that's a good thing to be, meddling on, thinking on, reflecting on, and what that means to you.
I love that. What is one thing that attendees will walk away with after listening and watching your presentation?
I really want people to walk away feeling, confident of on Monday morning when the 40-year-old marathoner walks into your clinic and is getting ready to undergo a lumpectomy and radiation for their breast cancer diagnosis, and they want to go back to marathon running, that you can say, okay, we're going to tackle that together. I know that may sound, you may be questioning me and your own ability, but your patients are powerful and they're strong and they have the endurance to go on this journey. And so you're going to be right there beside them, and just the confidence knowing that you're going to be able to, after this session, relay that to your patient so artfully and then act upon it throughout their journey, so that in the end, they're showing you a photo of them with their medal.
Oh,
Just like it's like a reel. It's like a whole movie reel. It really, when we think about, returning to sport, for some people's journeys, it's long. It's long. Yeah. It's going to be hard. It's questioning their just like with any other injury, it's questioning their identity as an athlete and as a person when it's something that's meant so much to them. And I mean, cancer already does that. It does it like 10 times over, which sucks.
Absolutely.
But that you can be in clinic and have that conversation with the patient and say, hey, I'm here, I'm alongside you. I'm the right person. I'm the right addition to your team. Mm-hmm. We're going to put this together. And that's so powerful for the patient. That's so powerful for the PT.
Yeah. There's nothing quite like, so this past February, I think it was, my patient did the Cowtown Half Marathon here in Fort Worth, and getting to follow along, because I volunteered at a water station, getting to follow along with her bib number on the app and being like, oh, she just crossed mile 3. Oh, she's halfway there. Oh, she's almost at the finish line. That, man, we talk about all these really cool things that we do as onco PTs, and getting to walk/run with your patient along these milestones towards that finish line, whatever that is for them. Oh, that just makes me feel so good inside. And man, we did that together. She did most of the work. Don't get me wrong. But getting to be on the team, like you talked about earlier, Kelly, to make that happen is so dang cool. Oh my gosh.
Yeah,
I love that so much.
like one of my patients I previously worked with, wonderful person. And they reached out to me and I was like, wait, I hadn't heard from them in a while. And they reached out to me and I was like, wait a minute, why is this person reaching out to me? Like we've kind of kept up with each other peripherally. And she reached out to me and I was like, wait a minute, is something wrong? Like I was like, that's weird. Just haven't heard from you. I haven't heard from you in a while. And, and then for them she had a question. She was like, even I probably hadn't, we hadn't probably directly spoken in, I don't know, probably 6 months, maybe 8 months. And she had a question and she thought, okay, Kelly would probably have the answer to my inquiry.
Yes.
And then we, caught up. We took the rest of the conversation to catch up on how things were going for her. And then like the more she was talking and just kind of updating me on how things have been, I was like, oh my gosh, I feel like really honored right now that she thought she had a question about something and she thought I was going to be the person, to answer that question for her. So she called me and I was like, and I told her that I just had to stop and be like, I'm sorry. Like, I'm just really taken aback. I like feel really honored. Like that really means a lot to me as a clinician that, someone I worked with, a year, 8 months out, like had a question and was like, I'm going to text Kelly first.
Yeah.
Because she probably knows. It's like, that's so awesome. And then, we see you, I told a patient earlier this week as like, I'm like, I love my patients, but I don't want to see you in clinic. I want to run into you at your race, in the grocery store, in whatever, and being like, hey, how you doing? And just hearing how well you're doing. I want to run into you in the community. So my job is to get you back to that so that that's where I run into you in the future. Because that's really where I want to see most people. I want to see everyone there versus in my 4 walls of my clinic.
Absolutely.
But yeah, it's just really so cool to be a part of it.
So cool. As we wrap up our conversation today, Kelly, stepping back from, obviously we've talked a lot about your session, looking at the conference as a whole, what are you most excited about for the Cancer Rehab Community Conference 2025?
I think it goes without saying, I'm really excited, also nervous, but excited to have the opportunity to speak in an area that I'm passionate about, have that opportunity. So again, just like so grateful that I have the opportunity and the platform to do that, because I've been a listener for the past 2 years. And so now I get to, talk about something that I'm really passionate about and share some knowledge with people and have them walk away feeling more confident in an area that maybe they hadn't thought about before, or maybe they thought about it. Maybe there's future collaborations with people who mean like, hey, I've been thinking about this. You're passionate about it too. Let's hash this out together. I'm all about collaboration. And I think just the diversity of other topics that are in the lineup, because I think that's, again, I said it before, that's what, keeps me coming as a listener. And, everyone, even if they've already presented before at the rehab conference, they're coming back with another topic that's just like spot on, and getting to see where these topics, start to intertwine with each other. So you're listening to someone speak and you're like, well, that reminded me what Alex Hill said in her presentation. And then you hear someone else speak and you're like, oh my gosh, that panel talking is exactly what we heard first. It's like you just start seeing them all intertwined together too. So just the applicability of it is just awesome.
So exciting.
There's clearly many things that make me excited about this conference. We can keep going.
Good though. Like, these are all good things to be excited about. And I'm glad there's an abundance of things to be excited about. I mean, obviously, we sit behind the scenes and we're like, we have so many cool things coming up this conference. But to hear it from someone else who's like a little removed from it is very, very exciting.
It's awesome. And, being able to, like, I remember one of our I think it was our director of rehab, like, sent an email to a group of us who were all involved in are all involved in oncology, whether it's on the inpatient side or the outpatient side, or a mix. And she was like, is this a good conference to go to? And I was immediately responded and said, yes, it is. It is a good conference. And P.S. I'm also potentially presenting in this conference. I am presenting in this conference. But yes, it's a great, I recommend the community to anyone. And so it was like, it's starting to, we were talking about this even before the podcast started, was like just the spread of oncology rehab and things moving in this younger area of clinical practice, moving and going, literally internationally sometimes, but you start seeing it for me, I'm seeing it in my workplace, and I'm like, heck yeah, join the Cancer Rehab Community. And, then hearing like, oh, it's going into other countries, and just even that mashup and collaboration is just awesome. It's just awesome to hear and know that that's happening.
Pretty exciting stuff. Where can people follow you or connect with you to continue this conversation, Kelly?
So definitely on the Cancer Rehab Community. I'm on there very frequently, whether I'm posting my own questions,
heck yeah, girl,
or chatting about topics on the community board. So definitely there. And I'm also on X or Twitter, Kmart DPT. You can find me there as well. And so I'm pumped. If you have this interest too, please let me know. I want to collaborate with you. I want you. Yeah. I want you to join me.
We want you. That needs to be like, we need to get a screenshot of you, like that old poster.
Like, I want you. To collaborate, please.
I want you for the Cancer Rehab Community. That's going to be the promo that we do. Well, once again, Dr. Kelly Martin's session is called Getting Back in the Game, Return to Sport in Cancer Survivorship. She is presenting at the Cancer Rehab Community Conference 2025, which takes place virtually on Friday and Saturday, November 7th and 8th, 2025, and we cannot wait to see you there. We have the link in the show notes where you can save your seat today. Make sure that you do that. Time is ticking. We are just a few short weeks away, and we are so excited and cannot wait to see you there. So Kelly, thank you so much for joining us once again. We are very much looking forward to your session. And until next time, this is Elise with the OncoPT. And remember, you are exactly the physical therapist that your patients with cancer need. So let's get to work.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode of the OncoPT podcast. If you'd like to help support the podcast, please share it with others, leave a rating and review, or support us on Patreon.